Hi everybody, I have an art tutorial to share with you today. We are making some dandelion art for the cover of our nature journal. So the first thing I did for this project was I went online and I found an image of a dandelion. Then I went ahead and sketched it so that I would have a guide while I was working with my kids. Now, it probably would have been better for me to copy the image rather than my drawing because I do make a couple of mistakes when I'm making the dandelion, but this is more of an artistic representation rather than an accurate drawing for, like, say, a science book. So I think it's okay in the end. Now, I've got my 10-year-old working on the left and my 6-year-old working on the right. And since we're kind of crowded here on the table, it was a little bit difficult for us to get a good angle on drawing, but I think we did fine in the end. However, there's going to be a lot of movement going on in this video. I'm explaining to the kids what we're going to be doing and how they should be drawing the different flowers and the leaves. And also, we're only using one eraser, and so we keep going for the eraser because we made a lot of mistakes. And so I apologize for all the movement, but this is basically our homeschool life. However, if I were doing this and I wasn't recording it, we probably would spread out just a little bit more because it's just really tight and crowded on this little desk while I'm recording. So my 6-year-old listened to the instructions and did it her way, and I love that. And my 10-year-old on the left also followed the directions, and I actually absolutely love the way his turned out. It turned out so fantastic that by the time I was done with mine, I had made some mistakes, and you'll see them later on. I made some mistakes with the bottom part of the leaves when I finally got to the watercoloring part, and I really didn't like the way it turned out, and so I actually went and I did it again, and I tried to make it look more like my son. So just saying, when kids get expressive, sometimes their work turns out fabulous, even if it's not exactly the way that you intended or the way that you presented it, or if it just doesn't even look like yours, it can actually look better, and that's what ended up happening here. So what I've done is, what we're doing is we're outlining the whole entire drawing using just a pencil, really simple, and an eraser, just a simple eraser. You just want to make sure it erases really well because we're going to watercolor on this later, and in order to help with the design, I thought it would be easier for us to pencil in the design first because once we watercolor, we're not going to be able to add a lot of detail, and so the pencil drawing actually helps define the different shapes that we're making. If you noticed, the very first dandelion that we did doesn't have an actual dandelion on it, and that's going to be the one that's in full bloom, ready to disperse its seeds, and we're going to do something special for that in a little bit, and I think it's going to turn out really good in the end. So we're going to continue drawing basically our leaves and the dandelions, and I was copying the leaves as best as I could from the drawing that I did and from the image that I found. I don't think they're super accurate, but like I said, I don't think it's that big of a deal, and at the very end I think that it looks beautiful in its own way. We're working on watercolor paper. This is 90-pound watercolor paper by Fabriano. I picked it up online at Dick Blick, and I absolutely love this watercolor paper, not just for watercoloring, but for our other crafty needs as well. I use it in my digital die cutter, my Silhouette Cameo, really often because it's a nice thick paper, but it still cuts really well, and it holds up to even small designs. So I use this whenever we're needing die cuts for like labels or our homeschooling or any unit study. I always go for this paper first, and then we can always color and alter it later. This paper is 9 inches by 12 inches, and it's going to be the outside cover of our nature journal. So now I am using my Zig pen. This is a special pen for embossing. You can't just use a normal pen. This one has a different kind of residue that stays on the paper. You can't use glue either. This is the special pen if you want to do this, and that is the white embossing powder, which you're also going to need, as well as a heat tool. You cannot use a hairdryer for this, and you're going to see that it embosses it. It's kind of like a plasticky raised image, which is going to be super cool because we're basically going to do a resist when we do the watercolors. We're using our Distress inks, and I'm doing this on my glass cutting mat. You just want a non-porous surface in order to do this. I just moved it to the back because it was reflecting the lights, so you can't see the whole palette, but we basically have a variety of greens and yellows. I have some shabby shutters and peeled paint, which are the greens, and I have some wild honey and some straw are the colors of the yellow, as well as some others, and for that full list you can check the description box below. So we're just going to go ahead and fill in the leaves using our pencil as a guide, and then we're going to do the yellow afterwards for the different dandelions. And then the very end, we're going to color the whole thing, and that's when you're really going to see that upper dandelion there that's just in white. It's really going to pop. It's super cool. I love the way that it turns out. Now this is for the cover of a nature journal that we're doing. Now we already have a few nature journals for this unit that we're working on. This is a botany unit. But we also have the book called Math in the Garden, and we were really inspired by that book. And one of the first activities in that book is to do a nature journal for the activities that you're going to do in that book, and we want to add that to this unit. And so we went ahead and decided that we were going to do this nature journal. Now it recommends just using some heavier cardstock for the cover, but of course we can't just leave it at that. We decided that we're going to do something that's nature inspired, and so that's where this activity came in. So you can see now I'm just using a lot of really light, very wet watercolor up at the top, and then I'm going to go ahead and dry off the parts that are on top of the embossed parts. It's not going to stick onto the paper at all, so you don't really have to dry it off, but I went ahead and did that. And you can see that it's white there where the dandelion is, but we have to take it up a notch, and we're going to add some glitter glue on top of that. This glitter glue you can find at Michael's. It's in the $1.50 section, and it looks fabulous when it's done. It's not going to be raised when it's done. It's going to be really flat, but it does take a really long time to dry. So my son is going to go ahead and finish his right here, and at the very end you'll be able to get a glimpse of all of our work when it's done, as well as a sneak peek to the nature journal, which you can catch in another video because I absolutely love the way they turned out. They're right there by itself. It's a work of art, but when we fill it up, it's going to become part of our nature unit study as well as our botany main lesson block for our Waldorf curriculum. Now, if you want to catch up on all the different videos and lessons we're doing for our botany main lesson, you can tap on the screen right now. And if you want to catch up on some of our other nature units, you can see that as well. And if you want to see how we're filling up this nature journal on a daily basis, you can find us on Instagram at Pepper and Pine.